Greetings, I'm Lisa Strasbaugh, Assistant Director of Admissions from the Mandel School at Case Western Reserve University, and I welcome you to this evening's information session. It may not be evening where you are, but it is in Cleveland, Ohio, as we spend about an hour reviewing the three different formats of the Masters of Social Work that makes and contributes to the Mandel School. Tonight, I have joined with me two current full-time on-campus students, Agatha and Jackie, and I will allow them to introduce themselves.
Hello, everyone. My name is Agatha Adobamen. I'm a full-time on-campus international student from Nigeria. I'm currently in my second year, and my concentration is in health. I'm really excited to be a part of this information session and to share my experience with you all. Thank you.
Thanks, Agatha.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jackie Serta. I'm originally from California, and I moved all the way here for my master's in social work. My concentration is mental health with a focus on adults. And yeah, I'm very excited to be here and share some of my experiences with you all.
Great. So we are going to briefly review the two graduate programs that the Jack Joseph and Morton Mandel School of Applied Social Sciences includes. Clearly, you've all registered for this event, which is exclusively focused on the MSW, but the MSW and the Masters of Nonprofit Organizations, or MNO, are linked together in a very unique manner. And so students often are very well aware as the #1 MSW program in the state of Ohio and the #9 program in the country. They're aware of our MSW, however, they're not as aware perhaps of our MNO. However, as an MSW student, you might choose to take some courses as electives in nonprofit organizations. We have lots to brag about in terms of the MNO program. We actually are one of the 12 accredited programs in the world at the graduate level for nonprofit. And we actually are also one of the oldest programs in the country. And so we have a unique lens being housed in a school of social work. And there's a lot of overlap and synergy that takes place between the MSW and the MNO. Even if you don't personally take courses, you probably will interact with students from either the program or the certificate. So tonight we have sort of a tall task ahead of us. We are going to attempt to cover the three formats that the MSW is offered in. And so I'd like to clarify from the top. So the on-campus program is most oftentimes our full-time program. However, sometimes we do have students that will enroll on a part-time basis. These generally actually are Case Western Reserve University employees. But the vast majority of our students, like Agatha and Jackie, are enrolled on campus full-time. The program only begins in the fall, and it's 4 semesters in length. Fall, spring. If you wanted to add some summer courses, that would be fine. We do offer them, but it is not a requirement in terms of the pattern of enrollment. The courses take place in sort of the traditional undergraduate U.S. model, which is during a 14-week semester, and they are offered once a week. If we contrast the on-campus program and we compare that to our two exclusively part-time options, which are the online and the weekend, and so they have some components that are similar and then also some distinctive characteristics. Both of the are the exact length in time. They take between 2.5 to 3 years in length, depending on if you are a traditional student or an advanced standing student, and we'll discuss that in a moment. The coursework takes 8 semesters without a break. So as opposed to our on-campus where there is that summer break, online and weekend require that you do continue in the coursework without a break. Each semester varies a bit. You take between 2 and 3 courses a semester, as well as field, which will begin in your second semester of coursework. Our weekend program is quite innovative. It began in the 1980s and was exclusively created as a workforce development when we were in a time and space where we really needed social workers in the state of Ohio. And so we've modified the program a smidge. You might notice that on our website, it has been referred to as intensive weekend. We're rebranding a little bit and just referring to it as weekend. All of our programs are intense. I'm sure our students would agree, but it is the same program. And so our weekend program meets on a Saturday and a Sunday over once a month. Over a 2-month time period, you would complete one course, and then you would begin your second course immediately the next month, and then that course as well would be completed over a 2-month time period. So in essence, in a semester, you would complete 2 courses plus your field, and you would spend 4 weekends on campus at Case Western Reserve University, as opposed to the online, although it is a synchronous program, meaning you do need to meet academic goals, and you are meeting for 90 minutes once a week live on Zoom for your coursework with your actual faculty and students all across the nation. You do have a great deal of flexibility of when you are completing the rest of your work. I wanted to focus tonight on a bit more on the commonalities and then the differences. And so I've started to talk about those a bit on the previous slide. So all of our MSW formats, because we are accredited by CSWE, they must be identical in a number of very important ways. So if you are a student that is coming to us and you're bringing either a bachelor's degree in English or psychology or sociology or ethnic studies or something like that, which is actually the vast majority of our students, we would consider you a traditional student. So your degree will take 60 credit hours to complete. If you are what we consider an advanced standing student, your degree will take 39 credit hours. All 3 of our formats utilize a flipped classroom model. And so actually, I'm going to take a breath here, and I'm going to ask Jackie and Agatha to talk a little bit about what flipped classroom has meant to them in terms of the work that they need to do prior to class and in between classes.
So flipped classroom was something that I personally had to get adjusted to because my undergraduate courses weren't like it. For those of you who aren't aware, it's essentially where you do the readings and any sort of prep work at home, and then you come to the classroom ready to discuss, bring up any questions that you may have, and do a lot of like small group work within the classroom. And then break out into like larger groups to make sure that everyone's understanding. So you're doing like the bulk of your learning at home and then coming in and like really like cementing it by talking to others and asking your questions to the professor. Personally speaking, I think I had a better time after I talked to the other classmates of mine. And we kind of were able to like work out a fun little strategy where we got together and we divided and conquered. That way we were able to share the coursework and like rely on each other. And it's always good to talk to your professors too and letting them know where you're at so that, you know, they know where you're at. And then if there's any adjustments that need to be made, or, you know, if they have any tips or tricks, then they'll be, you know, sharing it with you. Agatha, what about you?
Like Jackie, flipped classroom was something that was new to me when I came into the program, and it was a bit challenging at first because we needed to read ahead of the class, and and the workload was a bit heavy, and it was challenging because for someone like me, I had left school a long while ago. So going back to the classroom was a bit difficult, in terms of adjustment. But then the good thing about it was that it gave you the opportunity to understand what the lesson was, what the lecturer was going to talk about. And it gives the students the opportunity to interact and contribute their understanding of the lesson in the class. And it was really an eye-opener for me, because coming from a background where lecture method was what I was used to, and we didn't really have much time for interaction, it was a real good opportunity for me.
Great, thanks so very much. So another one of the characteristics that all three of the formats share would be that our faculty teach in several formats. And so I always want to make sure that the students enrolled specifically in our part-time programs don't feel as if that if only the adjuncts are relegated to teach those courses, that there is overlap, and that some of our faculty, based on their own research as well as their own life preferences, will choose to teach perhaps on campus as well as online, or perhaps on campus as well as weekend. All of our courses had been evaluated actually during the pandemic, and the faculty essentially took the current structure and broke apart larger typical 3-credit-hour courses and provided a generalist and a specialized course curriculum that provided more depth and breadth. And so when I talk with students, I always sort of want to clarify, and I use the example of when you were an undergrad student, that about half of your coursework was your gen eds and maybe about half was your major. But in terms of how the Mandel curriculum has been structured, there's a great deal of courses in the generalist curriculum, and then a smaller amount in that specialized area. So we often will say that the Mandel education will not just prepare you for the first job as a professional social worker, but will prepare you for your career, no matter what comes along professionally, that you will have coursework that will have covered. So perhaps you're not particularly interested in pursuing as a path of study, perhaps aging, but then your life or your profession takes a different turn 10 or 15 years down the way. And then because you have a pretty deep knowledge base in gerontology, that you would be able to pursue that in your professional life. Interprofessional education is something that will be a requirement for all of the formats. And so I actually have a picture in a bit that shows an image of IPE. It's kind of an interesting university-wide initiative, and I think that I'll just wait till I get to that screen, and I'm going to ask our students to talk a little bit about that. But it's pretty transformative, and it's really a wonderful opportunity for our social work students to gain more practical, hands-on experience working with other future professionals. So certainly all of our MSW students are required to complete the same number of field hours. So that would be 900 hours if you're a traditional student and 500 hours if you're an advanced standing student. And that's very important. That's an accreditation mandate. And so that would look very differently from one format to the next, but I'll just wait to when we get a little bit further to see if we need to have some discussion about what that looks like in field, specifically for people that are working full-time that are enrolled in our part-time programs. The Harris Library I wanted to include just to make sure that our online students and our weekend students, for that matter, we're aware that they too have the ability to take advantage of one of the few exclusive social work and nonprofit libraries exclusively in our building. So we're one of the few schools of social work that we have our own library in our building. And so those online students have access, obviously digitally, to all of those resources, as well as 3 full-time research librarians who are a great help. Some of the differences between the 3 formats in terms of the modality is obviously the frequency. And so in on-campus, as I mentioned, you will meet for class once a week per class, as opposed to on the weekend. I sort of explained that one weekend per month model throughout the semester. There are 9 paths of study that an on-campus student may participate in. And then there are a subset of those that are options for our weekend program, and then a different subset of options for our online students. And so, as I mentioned, the field practicum will look different. Generally, our on-campus students are spending about 2.5 days of their week in field practicum. And obviously, as a full-time employee, you wouldn't be able to do that. So it looks much closer like 10 to 12 hours a week, in addition to your coursework. I mentioned scholarships here only in that the scholarship models are a little bit different from program to program. Obviously, the fewer credits, the smaller the tuition bill, and there are a variety of different models, and the scholarship information and averages are very visibly listed on our website. And so I encourage you to seek those out. So I did want to mention really briefly about advanced standing. As I said, you would be considered an advanced standing student. Certainly, if you had earned your BSW in the last 7 years, you automatically would receive advanced standing. If it is prior to the 7 years, then we evaluate it on a case-by-case basis. So these are some of the exact courses that you would be taking your either your first year as an on-campus student, or in your first few semesters if you were an online or a weekend student. And so I wondered if Jackie or Agatha had a story, if they can remember back to last fall when they were brand new in the US and in Cleveland for that matter, if there are any stories about either CHI, which is our Change Agent Intensive, or which is over here, or any of the SAS courses listed in the circles.
For sure. So out of the classes that we took for our generalist year, my favorite one was SAS 508, Individual and Family Practice. Our teacher was Dr. Wood, who is fantastic and incredibly knowledgeable in her area. She had been a direct practitioner for so many years and still continues to be. So she was just fantastic in like how much information she shared. But this class was my favorite, not just because of her, but because it's the role play class. And so personally speaking, I would like to go into direct practice. So you know, the other classes are just as important. They're about the theory and the backing of everything. But this was where I got to put all of the theories that I learned from the other classes into action. And it was also very fun because even the Dr. Wood was like, no one here is, you know, getting an Oscar for their acting skills. It was still really fun because we each got to play different family dynamics, and Agatha and I were actually in the same family dynamic, and Agatha got to play the dad and I got to play the mom, and we took turns with our other classmates being the social worker, and our other classmates doing different roles. So it was just a lot of fun overall and a great way to practice some of the skills that we were learning about in other classes.
Okay, for me, most of the classes were fun. I enjoyed the classes, but my favorite was the community practice and theory. And what I liked most about it was the opportunity to go out into the community and see the impacts the social work practice is making in the community around Cleveland and in the environment around the Case Western Reserve University. It was really fun for us because as students, we were able to go to the Slavic village where we had learned it in class, but we were able to experience it firsthand because we were able to interact with the community members, interview them. You know, they talked to us about what they were going through and how social work practice has impacted their lives and their community in general. So it was really fun for me.
Great, thanks so much. So this is a slide that I had mentioned about the paths of study and the different options based on your format. And so I was wondering, Jackie and Agatha, if you could just take a moment to talk a little bit about your particular path of study and if it's the same path of study that you chose when you applied to Mandel. And the next slide is going to be about field, so you can feel free to also share some information about your current field site and your field site from last year.
Okay, when I came to Mandel School, I actually wanted to concentrate in school social work because coming from Nigeria, I had worked with children as a math teacher, but my first internship was at Montefiore, and it's a senior home, and it's also it was for seniors, and it took care of their healthcare and rehabilitation. So working at Montefiore gave me the opportunity to see how people go through the process of recovery and getting back into the community. And I really fell in love with that aspect of social work. And that made me to change my concentration. Currently, I'm in health. And my next field placement would be at the VA, where I'll be working with seniors as well. And that will be in the palliative care and a hospice.
I came in as a mental health with adults track, and I'm still in that same track. Last year, I had the privilege of working at the Ohio Center for Survivors of Torture, which is housed in Catholic Charities Migration Refugee Services Department. So I didn't do direct therapeutic practices, but I did get to learn a lot about case management, which is great for the generalized year. It got me acquainted with what resources are available to our clients. And even though it wasn't direct therapeutic like practices, like any therapy going on, it was still an excellent opportunity to learn about how to interact with those who had undergone trauma in a way that was careful and not going to be re-traumatizing for them. And it also gave me a wonderful opportunity to work with a diverse group of individuals. So I really, if you're interested in case management and working with diverse clientele, look into the Ohio Center for Survivors of Torture if you end up coming to Mandel. And then for my second year placement, I'm looking forward to working at Holding Space, which is a private practice where I will be a therapy intern, and I'll get to go in and start to practice some of those theories that I learned about.
Great, that's super helpful. So I did want to point out really the field experience, which perhaps you are not all aware that field education is the signature pedagogy of the social work profession. So if you think of sort of contemporaries of teaching as well as physicians, their signature pedagogies are rounds and student teaching. Just flip those backwards, but you know what I mean. And so, so field education is really sort of where the expression is the rubber hits the road. And so it's an opportunity for students, obviously, to be applying in what they're learning. And so it is the philosophy of the Mandel School that there's a real synergy. So you're in class about 2 days a week, and then you are in field about 2.5 days a week. Other institutions have chosen to do field in an intensive manner exclusively when you're not enrolled in courses. However, we really feel that it's important to be able to reflect and discuss and process what you're learning in field in a classroom setting in an immediate nature. One of the other components of the field education program that makes it a standout is that we have 1,000 field partners across the nation. So because we have the online program and the weekend program where some of our students choose to do their field requirements in their place of work, although certainly of that 1,000 partners, many of them are in Northeastern Ohio, but we do have them all across the country as we have students all across the country. In the images here that I've selected, the image here in the circle is for the field recruitment fair, as it were. So you do not need to worry that you need to find your field placement. When you're an incoming student, your field faculty will reach out to you in the summer. And then once you're a returning student, we bring the field partners to campus to be able to dialogue with them, to be able to find a field placement that will meet your needs and that will be mutually satisfying. An image right here is showing our fine field faculty as well as the Assistant Dean of Field Education and External Partnerships. I always want to point out the fact that we have designated field faculty for each specific format. So the people that support the students enrolled in online exclusively do that. So they sort of understand the nuances of the curriculum and what is affecting students who are working full time. And then there are other of the team that are exclusively supporting students in the on-campus as well as exclusively supporting the weekend. And so I feel like that differentiation helps meet the needs of our students. So this is collaborative practice, or we sometimes will call it IPE. And so it's a very innovative program, although we feel like that probably social work programs across the country will be catching up with Mandel. It is a collaborative way for graduate students, primarily in the medical side of Case Western Reserve University, to collaborate with the School of Social Work, as well as the School of Psychology. But if you see the listing here, these are future professionals that are going to be working together that each have their unique lens in terms of their focus, their discipline. And so think of it as sort of a mini field experience. So you are in a group with one other, a dental student, a genetics counseling student, a nutrition student. It's likely that you would be the only social worker. And so it's really a wonderful, exceptional opportunity, I would say, to provide that social work lens to a whole other group of graduate students who may be, future physicians, future genetic counselors, and you are partnered with an actual nonprofit here in Northeastern Ohio and are assigned a project. It's a year-long undertaking in the on-campus format, and in terms of online and weekend, we're kind of working through how that's going to work. And so we are partnering with 6 other institutions across the U.S. That are interested in an asynchronous manner, but they are still students in medicine and nursing who need to work on the skills of how do we work together to tackle these large problems or issues, and how can we collaborate more as future professionals. So does anyone want to jump in and share who your partner was, your champion, and what was your actual project?
Yeah, I can jump in. So my champion was Krista Lumpkins, and the organization I got to work with was Birthing Beautiful Communities, which is this nonprofit in Cleveland that is dedicated to decreasing the mortality rates of Black mothers and babies. I got to work with a lovely cohort of, or is that the right word? Cohort? Group lovely group of individuals from the medical field, which one is great because I basically existed in the Mandel building, but I didn't really go past the Mandel building aside from like the library. So it was a great way to meet like like dental students, doctor students, nursing students, and get to know a little bit about what their curriculum looks like compared to ours, in terms of things like social, cultural humility, you know, how to interact with clients and stuff like that. But it was also great because our joint project was focused on creating informational materials and videos for new moms who were currently going through pregnancy and might not necessarily know anything about it. So I got to rely on like the nursing and the dental and the doctoral students who were able to kind of share with me like this is how the anatomy is changing during pregnancy, and like these are the key aspects that we should be putting into these videos so that new moms know what's going on with their bodies and what to expect when they go to doctors' offices for their, you know, prenatal and then postpartum visits. So yeah, that was a great opportunity, and you never know what's going to come out of it because I ended up getting a summer internship with BBC because of the work that I was able to do with them. So I am currently working as an outreach intern with BBC right now, and I continue to work with Krista, who's great. So you never know, you can always get a job afterwards from these things.
That's great, Jackie. Agatha, do you have a story, or could you just share with the group who your partner was and what your project?
Okay, I just want to share briefly that my champion was Roberto, and we worked with the shelter community, the shelter home, and we helped them to develop a manual, a safety manual for the home. And I worked with mainly medical students, and you know, some of them were in the medical school, some in nursing, some in dentistry, and it was really fun working with different groups of professionals. And I learned a lot, you know, learning about their curriculum and what they have to do, the practicals they do, and things like that. It was really fun. And working as a group to develop the manual, we're able to collaborate. We we're able to help each other because some of the medical students had very busy curriculum, and we're able to cover up for them. And it was really fun learning to assist your partners and your members of your team to get to a desired goal. And at the end of the day, we're able to meet our targets at record time, and it was really fun.
Great. All right. So according to my behind the scenes notes, we're on slide 12 of 25. So I'm going to try to move more quickly because I know that after offering many of these information sessions that there are questions that the group wants to ask. So we're going to try to move through these a little bit more quickly. But as I said, we will be sharing the recording of this 24 hours after our information session wraps up. So one of the wonderful opportunities that all of our students have to participate in are short-term international study abroad programs that are linked with academic credit. And so last year, students had the opportunity to go to Ecuador for, I think it was a week and a half, Poland for a week and a half, and then South Africa was closer to 3 weeks, and really put into practice what they were learning, but certainly putting on a different lens in terms of those different nations and some of the different social work challenges. I certainly would I would be remiss if I didn't point out the research and training opportunities that the Mandel School provides. So there's a list here in these sort of funky bubbles of a variety of the options. A few of them are specifically available for our advanced standing or our second year students, like the HRSA integrated behavioral training programs, but others like the trauma and the brain series, you could participate right from the beginning in your first year. The professional year is specifically for students at designated institutions in Ohio. Essentially, it is a program, sort of an advanced program for students who complete the 3 years of undergrad and then their 2 years at Mandel, and they're able actually to earn a bachelor's and a master's in 5 years as opposed to 6. Everyone always wants to, has questions, many questions about scholarships because of the nature of this, at least the structure of the information session. We're going to just briefly discuss scholarship support. However, please note that in the second image here that Julie Painter, who's our Assistant Director of Financial Aid, she's exclusively focused and dedicated on incoming as well as current students in terms of scholarship support and financial aid. And so 100% of all students receive some level of scholarship, no matter what their format is. And as I mentioned, the scholarship levels will vary. And so I would just recommend that either you schedule a one-on-one with me, or you just do a simple deep dive in our website. We don't really hide it. We want to be transparent about students, that it is an investment to attend an institution like Case Western Reserve's Jack Joseph and Morton Mandel School of Applied Social Sciences. And so we are generous with our scholarships based on generous donors, alumni, etc. However, we do want to let people know that they will also be taking on some of the financial responsibility themselves for this degree. For those of you that are not familiar with Cleveland, or for Ohio for that matter, here's a couple of images that vary from the downtown area. This is actually not too terribly far away. However, I would say this is an image of the Cleveland Museum of Art. I tell people if I had a good throwing arm that I could hit the Museum of Art or hit one of the other wonderful museums, which is the Cleveland Botanical Gardens. I don't have a good throwing arm, but they really are so very close. We are housed in what's called University Circle, which is a really culturally dense and a beautiful place to live and learn and work. This is an image of a number of our staff who are here to support you. We have world-renowned faculty. However, we also have exceptional staff. I had mentioned the Harris Library being located directly in one of the 2 buildings that composes the Mandel School. We do have PD opportunities, licensure prep, and 2 designated students advancement specialists that are assigned to you and that are your sort of your go-to ombuds persons, if you will, throughout your Mandel career. Next, I wanted to jump to the application. So a number of you have been emailing us, when will the 2024 application open? So I'm happy to share with you that Friday, September 1st, the 2024 application will open. However, that doesn't mean that you can't start preparing now. We did want to reiterate our commitment and not have the application fee be a barrier. So there is no application fee to apply to the Mandel School for any of the formats. We do not require the GRE. However, we do require transcripts, unofficial or fine by us at this point in the admissions process. For every college or university that you've earned 6 credit hours or more, there is a specific 3 to 5 page essay, a full resume outlining your service and professional activities, and then 2 letters or digital forms from recommenders. And so this particular slide just briefly outlines the essay, and the essay that is listed on the website right now is the essay that will also be used for the 2024 admissions application. So you certainly can start working on that in terms of its content. We do review our applications in a holistic manner. Just a couple of comments here about being thoughtful about who you're asking. to write the letters of reference. Be thoughtful about that essay. I always suggest that we're not the first people that are seeing it after you've completed it. I would recommend that you would go ahead and share it with a friend or a colleague and get some feedback about that essay. Our scholarships related to that are awarded on a fully merit basis. And so it's important that your application be as strong as possible. Our requirements academically are a 2.7 GPA and above. However, that does not mean that we would not accept a student with a lower GPA of a 2.7 if they had stellar experiences, a very strong essay, as well as other contributing factors. I wanted to just mention that we do have a variety of scheduled but not yet dates confirmed. So just sort of an FYI on the timing for us. Our incoming class of 2023 just joined and started to arrive last week. And our faculty are returning, and classes will actually, and the university will be opening up in terms of first day of class on Monday/Tuesday of next week. So as soon as we can get some of the details confirmed, that information will be available on our website. And now that you've registered for this event, don't worry, we'll be emailing you, letting you know about upcoming events so that you can register them, so that you can learn all about the components of the Mandel School prior to some of our deadlines. So I wanted to take the opportunity to let people know that for the on-campus coursework, the full-time program, the first deadline in terms of priority admissions and scholarship is December 1st. And then we have 3 more subsequent deadlines, and then we move to a rolling deadline. For our online program, it starts actually year-round. And so if you're anxious to join us in the online format, you certainly could do that in January of 2024. And the first deadline for that is just around the corner. That first deadline is September 15th. So I see that I have a question in the chat, so I'm going to go ahead and just take a look at that. And will there be an event covering the MNO in the same way that MSW was? An excellent question. Yes, on our website right now, we do have an MNO, a number of MNO specific information sessions that will be structured in a very similar way. I'll be facilitating with Dr. Robert Fisher, who is the program chair of the department. And we hope to also be able to provide a current student or at least an alumni. These events are tricky to be able to be able to schedule, but we realize that it's such a rich resource for you to be able to speak directly to students and alum about their experience. So with that in mind, I would welcome anybody to unmute themselves, and if that you would like to ask a specific question, I'm going to go ahead and stop the share just so that I can see hands and faces a little bit more. And if you'd like to either direct your question to either Jackie or Agatha or myself, that would be most helpful. So is there anybody who has questions that they would like to follow up on anything that we've discussed today? A great question. When do advanced standing classes begin, and when is the application deadline? So the advanced standing application and the deadline and all of the scholarship deadlines that I mentioned are exactly identical as the traditional program. And so those courses will be offered at the same time period. And so in online, that's a year-round start. And then for the 2 in-person offerings, there is only a fall start. International transcripts. Will there be forms? Well, we love a WES document, to be very frank with you. However, currently we are not requiring them, but it is certainly, it is an advantage to you if you do have a WES transcript to be able to upload that. It will shorten the amount of time that it takes our staff to review someone's file, to prepare the admissions committee for the formal review in terms of admissions. However, it is not required, it's just helpful. How long will the admissions decision be after applying? That's a fabulous question. To be frank, it really does depend. We receive a great number of our students who send their applications right before the December 1st deadline. And so then we and the rest of the admissions committee, which is composed of faculty and staff, are very busy at that time, reading through with a great amount of thoroughness to make those decisions. Generally, we say 2 to 3 weeks for a domestic student once all of the pieces have been received. The admissions portal will continue to update you as documentation arrives in our system. I'm just making sure that I'm covering everything that's in the chat. Can international students seek more than one fellowship or scholarship? So that's I'm not sure. I'll just speak sort of generally about scholarships. And so one of the points that unfortunately that I omitted from mentioning, so I'm glad you asked the question, is that when a student is accepted to the Mandel School, they will receive in their admittance letter their level of scholarship. And so they receive that in the same communication. That does not mean that they couldn't receive outside scholarships, or if for some reason there might be a small additional, but essentially when you apply, let's say you submit your application November 1st and you receive your decision, we'll just say we get really bogged down and it's December 1st. In that December 1st communication, you would be informed of what your scholarship level is, so that you know right from the beginning what your financial responsibility would be over the length of your program, whether that's 4 semesters or 8 semesters. In terms of international students, you too certainly are qualified. There is not a differentiation. The only sort of limitation, I guess, as it were, for an international student is that international students cannot apply for federally funded loans. But in terms of scholarships, all students, domestic and international, are treated equally in terms of consideration for scholarships. Scholarships are certainly available for out-of-state students because we are a private university. We charge the same amount tuition for an in-state student, an out-of-state student, and an out-of-country student. Can Case Western Reserve University staff who receive tuition waivers still receive a scholarship? Unfortunately, the tuition waiver is considered a scholarship. I'll just mention for anyone else who's on the call, one of the benefits of working at the university is that the tuition waiver will provide a tuition waiver in the fall of 6 credit hours, in the fall and spring, and then 3 credit hours in the summer. As a full-time employee. So most of our students, therefore, are enrolled in either the weekend program or in the online program. I will go ahead and ask our students to answer the question in the chat about, is Cleveland safe? I think that that's an important question. So Jackie and Agatha, if you could tackle that for me, honestly, I would appreciate your perspectives. Thank you.
I guess I can go first. I found Cleveland incredibly safe. I will admit though, I am a bit of a homebody. So I do like knit a lot and I have like 2 cats. So if that like frames how often I go out and about, I am like a knitting old cat lady. But when I do go out and about, I do feel safe. I typically end up going out with friends. I'm not like one to go out by myself, but when I'm with friends, and when I'm out and about, I do feel safe. I live in a pretty safe neighborhood, like really safe neighborhood, Cleveland Heights, and it's like a 5-minute drive from University Circle. So that's my area of like experience. I don't typically deviate from that area again, because I am a homebody. But that is my personal experience. Agatha, what's yours?
From my own experience, I see Cleveland to be, it's safe because from the campus to where I live is about 23 minutes by drive, and I have not experienced anything unusual commuting to the school. I take the bus at times. Sometimes I drive, and I don't feel unsafe in any way. And once in a while, I hear of unusual um, incidents, but Cleveland is like any other city, big city, so it's normal to see one or two incidents of crime, but generally, I feel safe living in Cleveland.
You're muted, Lisa.
Indeed, I was muted. I was going to ask Agatha to expand a little bit. Someone had a question, and I am mindful of we're at 8:01 Eastern time. We'll spend a couple of minutes since we did watch the video. The prospective student was asking about temporary accommodations for international students, but I'm actually going to ask you to just sort of broaden what was your experience like coming to the US in terms of working with international student services, or the course that Dean McFarlane provides, and just sort of your general transition to the United States?
Okay, when I came into Cleveland, it was coming home because before I came in, I had interacted with the members of staff, and though I didn't know them personally, but I knew them, in terms of exchanges, message exchanges, and things like that. So I had received a link in terms of accommodation, so I was able to get accommodation pretty quickly. They have a lot of accommodation close to the campus, and it's within walking distance. But I chose to stay a bit far because I came with my family and I wanted my children to go to the school, the high school in the suburb. That's why I stay quite far from school. But generally, international students stay quite close to campus. There are apartments all around the campus area, and it's quite affordable for students, both for international and local students.
You're muted again, Lisa.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm looking at the chat. Are there any more questions that people would like to add? I did go ahead and add the link to if you are looking for the graduate fairs that the Mandel School will be attending throughout the US. There is a list. The M&O dates have not yet been finalized, as I need to coordinate those with Dr. Fisher with his very busy professional research and personal commitments. And so they'll be added very shortly. But we will be providing an exclusive student panel with Jackie, Agatha, and several of their other on-campus students, as well as I hope to have a student from each one of the other formats to be able to share their question. Somebody's referring back to that I skipped their question, but I don't know what that question is. Do I need to fill out? Apply separately if you want to do a dual. And so I chose, just because we were covering such a great amount of content, and to be frank with you, as soon as I opened the registration, you all started signing up in such great number. And so at the Mandel School, we do offer 6 different dual degrees. And so you use the exact same application, and when you choose classification or program, you would just go ahead and select dual degree, and then you would have your choices. The largest enrolled dual degree program is our MNO MSW, but we also have an MSW JD, an MSW MPH, or Masters in Public Health. We have an MSW that is partnered with the Weatherhead School of Business for an MBA. Help me, student ambassadors, what's the final one that I'm missing? I feel like I'm missing one last one. MNO, JD.
Bioethics.
Bioethics. Yes, indeed, because we're Cleveland, Ohio, and we are a stone's throw away from some of the finest healthcare in the world. And so lots of students are interested in combining bioethics and a master's in public health with a social work degree. I currently work as a teacher, and I'm volunteering and want to specialize in school social work. Absolutely. So in the on-campus full-time would be the format that aligns with the School of Social Work path of study. And so you would have both field placements would be in school settings to be able to enable you. That is because you graduate and you actually are earning the ability for 2 licenses. You actually are also enrolled in online coursework in the summer. And so that's the only path of study that requires it, because you are graduating with the background in order to take the licensure for social work, as well as the licensure that the Ohio Department of Education provides. If anyone else would like to unmute and ask their question, study abroad. Yes, we talked about, I'm sorry if someone missed, we do have 3 short-term study abroad programs. We're happy that we'll be offering them again this year. We did offer them in the spring and summer of 2023, and we visited Ecuador, Poland, and South Africa, and that was affiliated with academic credit and a small cohort of faculty from the Mandel School, as well as Mandel students, and we do open it up to other students across the university. And we certainly do encourage and invite students from all 3 formats. So please don't think that that is an exclusively on-campus format activity. And so anyone can participate in those short-term study abroad trips. All right, I think that is it. I appreciate so very much your time. I will go ahead and share the slides as well as the video. Oh yes, a strong application. What do we consider a strong application? We consider when we look at a student's digital portfolio of the components, we look at all of the components in a holistic manner. And so we do not have a rubric where one component is significantly weighted more heavily. However, the essay is always the component that I will communicate to a student that can reflect your current professional realities and that you have the most influence over. And so if you think about it, your resume is a reflection of the past. Your references are sharing with us previous experiences. Your transcripts are reflecting past academic grades, but really it's the essay that can talk about who you are in your present and who you want to be in terms of a future social worker, in terms of your future and how you want to embark upon the world, change, innovate, and transform. And so I would say focusing on that essay is most important, and the selection of the recommenders is critical. We would strongly prefer that one of those two references would be by a faculty member. If you are able to gather a reference from someone that can speak specifically and strongly, if it's been many years since you've been in the classroom, then it really won't be helpful to dig up something from many years ago. And so just someone who perhaps that was a colleague or a supervisor would be most helpful. Grad recommendation letters are all submitted independently. And so you would provide the contact information. So if I was Jackie's reference, I would receive an email in my inbox saying Jackie Serta has asked you to be a reference, and then I would complete a digital form, and she would not be part of that communication and due to confidentiality. I would submit that and it would go directly to her portal, and then she would receive an update saying Lisa has submitted her recommendation and that step in your admissions process has been completed. Oh, great. Answers to questions about stipend, and the stipend, yes, is provided for our full-time on-campus students. So this year, students receive $6,000 that is paid directly to a student. So that $6,000 is paid currently in a $750 monthly payment directly to you. You certainly may apply that to your bill, as well as put that towards your rent, food, transportation costs. And so the current field stipend is still for fall of 2024 at the $6,000 over the academic year rate. We await hearing from the university in terms of if that amount will continue at the $6,000 rate, or if perhaps it will return to the $1,000 rate, which is the rate that we were awarded at 2 academic years ago. Would a recommendation letter from a faculty member who you worked with one-on-one be better than someone that you took a class with a seminar to? Absolutely. The more specific, the more storytelling, the more the stronger the storytelling and messaging that faculty member can speak to you, to your passions, to your social justice lens, to your role in the classroom, to your research skills. That would be the person that I would recommend in terms of who to ask for a recommendation. All right, you've been a great audience. I thank you for your participation. I thank you so very much to my student ambassadors and my friends, Jackie and Agatha. I couldn't do this without them. And so I will just encourage you to investigate, follow up on the website. We recognize that perhaps that some of the information is there. It might be a little bit embedded. So we would encourage you, though, to just go ahead and use the search bar if you're having difficulty with trying to find information. It is there on the website. And if it's not, please reach out and I am happy to assist you with gathering information. Oh, and I will certainly send you regards, Rita. It's good to see your name again. And I will certainly send your regards to Richard and Barbara. It's always a pleasure to see you as well. It's a joy coming together to talk about the 23, 24, and possibly 25 academic year for future MSW students. And so I wish you well, and I thank you.